Good to see everyone. Happy Earth Day. It's Earth Day today. It's kind of like, this was a rescheduled presentation, Jeff, but I thought to myself, that, yeah, kind of a perfect rescheduled day here on Earth Day.
Point it at the projector.
Is it warming up?
Point it at the projector.
Okay. There we go. Thanks, Sean. All right. So some of you that might have, I did give a talk a couple months ago at down at Mood Duck. So some of this will look a little familiar, but for those that haven't heard it, I'm happy to share a little bit more about our organization. We're 20 years old this year. So we got started in 2002. We are a completely volunteer nonprofit organization, have our 501c3 status. And we're kind of the local organization that's interested in improving and increasing education and awareness about the Conewago Creek. This is our board of directors. We're made up of, again, volunteers, just regular old citizens that are interested in the Conewago. We either live in the watershed or play in the watershed or work in the watershed. And yeah, we've been around for several years now. I currently serve as the president of the organization, and what I want to do is kind of give you a little bit of a tour of the watershed, some of the issues that we work on, how we get engaged in working with landowners and groups like yourselves to improve the water resources of the Conewago, improve its water quality. So the watershed itself is about 50 square miles, a little larger. Its headwaters, this is the Mount Gretna area. You can actually see this little dark spot there, that's Mount Gretna Lake. So it has its headwaters even above the lake, the little streams that feed the lake, and then down into more of an agricultural valley of southern Lebanon County, down through Lawn, and then on into becoming the county line. As soon as it crosses into Dauphin, Lancaster County, it's the county line the whole way down. So parts of 3 different counties. This is what it looks like in the headwaters, pretty forested, and what that means when you have forest cover like this, you have really good clean water. Think, some of you might have, cabins up in the mountains for trout fishing. You're catching brook trout in the stream. We do actually have some wild brook trout in some of the tributary headwaters of the Conewago and Gamelands, but it's not really thought of as much of a trout stream. As you get down, a little further down, this is a typical scene taken from Deodate Hill, looking across 743. A lot of rural agricultural, very pastoral watershed. We have the rail trail, of course. The Conewago Recreational Trail becomes a Lebanon Valley rail trail, almost the entire kind of spine, like paralleling the creek, which is a great recreational resource. This is the industrial park, so we do have some urbanization. More coming. If you've driven Route 230 heading toward Middletown, you're seeing some large warehouses going up in the watershed. So there's more of that coming. But as you look to what are some of the issues of water quality associated with the creek, impacts of historic agriculture. We've been farming, of course, since the colonial era in this area, and as land gets cleared, and of course it's really important industry and growing food for all of us. At the same time, it can have its impacts on water quality, especially like here at a farm where there's cattle that have direct access to the creek, and they're not allowing vegetation to grow, getting in the creek and doing their business. You can have impacts. So we work with a lot of farmers to voluntarily fence cattle out of the stream, plant trees along them. Sometimes you have erosion that comes across crop fields that can add inputs to the creek. And what ultimately happens is, and then urban areas as well, where you have concentrated stormwater pipes like this that can add sedimentation to the creek. Some of the sedimentation comes from the banks itself. This is a very typical view in the Conewago or other streams in Lancaster County, especially where you've had lack of those trees and the roots to hold the banks in. You get a big storm and it just flushes more sediment right off the banks. So all of these sources combined tend to result in portions of our stream, especially as you go further downstream and they accumulate, to look like this. This is basically the bottom of this stream, kind of dug up with my hand. That's what it looks like. And when you have that muddy bottom, That's really not what the fish like. It's not what the fish food like, which is the aquatic insects, macroinvertebrates. Any fly fishers out here or fishermen, mayflies, stoneflies, caddisflies are the best flies to tie. That's what fish eat, and they really need more gravel cobble bottoms to survive and thrive in. You also have excess of nutrient runoff from the farmlands, from fertilized lawns, and that can lead to summer algae growth like this that then kind of chokes the dissolved oxygen and makes it difficult for the fish and critters to survive. So we do have those problems, which a lot of streams around here are impacted by excessive sediment or runoff into the streams and nutrients. And so you see these red portions of the watershed. These are the streams which are designated as not quite healthy enough to sustain the type of aquatic life that they could have if if some of those runoff nutrient sediments running in the stream were reduced. So that's really what our group is there to do, is work with landowners voluntarily. We're a totally volunteer group. We want to work with landowners that want to work with us. And we have a restoration plan that we've developed several years ago, has up to 270 potential project sites identified across the watershed. And so then what we do is we work with partners that may know landowners. Some of us have landowner contacts. We talk to them about doing projects on their lands. We build partnerships, so we're able to do more than just a couple of volunteers can do. We work with the municipalities, right, John? We work with the Penn State Extension and the Ag Environment Center. We work with agencies like the Susquehanna River Basin Commission and DEP, which provides us with some of the grant funding. And then a lot of what we do is education outreach. Historically, we've held an annual Earth Day celebration at Aberdeen Mills. This year, happily, we're going to be part of Earth to E-Town, so we'll be out there with an eco booth tomorrow, all day. So I'll be out there all day. We have some signs that are in a little bit of disrepair at a large restoration project, I think where you did some of those tree planting a couple of years ago. But we have some current grant funding to refurbish those signs, and we're looking to kind of utilize the trail as education, add a few more signs, and we're even talking about planning maybe a 5K or something like that in the future to gain awareness and maybe as a fundraiser for us. We've done some regular surveying of the stream, and I know there's some Rotary members from the talk I gave a couple months ago helped with last year's fish survey. Now we're not doing that this year. We do that once every 3 years, and we sample at 3 different places. We use this equipment, which is known as electroshocking, which sends a small charge through the water, and it temporarily stuns the fish enough that you can see them, you can net them real quick, and then you put them in these buckets, and they revive themselves. We bring them to tanks on the shore, and we see what that's all about. So I have some slides from last year's event. We partnered with the Conservation District and Susquehanna River Basin Commission. They're the ones that are, the professionals do this. They have this backpack and the electric charge, not the volunteers. But we get in there and help with nets. If you have your waders, you're not feeling the thing, don't touch the water when the charge is going in. That's a picture of one of the Penn State summer interns checking out the catch. This is up in the headwaters in Colebrook Game Lands. That is actually a little tiny largemouth bass. This was called a margin mad tom. It needs decent water quality, but it's kind of like a little catfish. Stone catties, I think, is another term that's commonly used for them. Now that's a big catty. Channel catfish down at our sampling point on Cover Bridge Road. And there, at every point, we found American eels, which have been reintroduced to the Conewago Creek and a lot of other creeks in this area, part of a restoration project that the River Basin Commission is doing. So that's pretty cool. That's Monique, one of our board members, and she works for Londonderry Township as their environmental coordinator. We do a lot of volunteer activities. As was mentioned, the tree planting, we'd love to talk about maybe doing a large tree planting event with Rotary in the future, maybe sometime this fall or next spring. Fall and spring are usually the best times of year to do that. So I'll show you a couple before and afters. We did some trash pickup, and that was in West Donegal, we had John out there helping with that last year and partnering with Penn State Greening Lower Susquehanna program. There we are, some of our volunteers planting trees last April, and the litter pickup I mentioned. Oh, there we go. We work with the municipality to arrange for the litter to be disposed of. We get out on buffer maintenance where we plant these trees in these little tubes, but after a while they'll start to grow out of the tubes, and it's good to kind of clean up the site, remove the tubes, let the trees become, you know, a large shaded streamside forest. So what I'll just finish with is some before and after pictures. This is a project we did up in Lebanon County on the Little Conewago, and that was an early project. That's why you see the graininess. That was an old picture taken of cattle in the creek. You can see the level of stream bank erosion when you have the combination of no trees and cattle access. But we worked to, that's some of our volunteers, we're planting what we call live stakes. This bucket is just maybe 2 feet snips of live cuttings from willow and red osier dogwood. You stick them right in the mud. You do this before everything emerges and gets, you know, no leaves on the trees yet, and they start to grow in. This is a willow bush that's from one of those live stakes a couple years later. And so that really helped to, that's what that site now looks like. It's a streamside forest. It's helping to clean the water, prevent the runoff, filter the runoff. This is probably our best before and after. It's right where all 3 counties come together on Prospect Road. We planted the buffer with other partners involved too. It's kind of a neat program where the landowner actually gets an annual rental payment because he's taking land out of pasture production. And so a USDA program pays him an annual check to say, hey, thank you for doing this. You retired your land, you planted trees there instead. So that's called the Conservation Reserve Enhancement Program. And the fence goes up and keeps the cattle out. And then a watering system got installed so they don't even have to get in the creek anymore. And that's fed with a solar-powered pump and gravity flow to the tanks. So that's what it looked like the year after planting. And that's what it looked like last year. So that's from 2008 to present. So we help with the maintenance and that kind of thing. Some of the pictures you saw of taking down tubes are from that site. Then our Big Hershey Meadow site, and this is where you helped with some of the tree planting, but that had the eroded bank problem. We actually worked with U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service as a partner. We got a big grant, about $250,000. They did a bunch of structures to restabilize the bank and add fish habitat. Did about 13 acres of wetland restoration, and then the tree planting totals about 20 acres at this site. So here's some of the structures you see going in to fix those eroding banks. It allows the water to kind of, as a high water comes downstream, it rolls up this little ramp, and then it kind of dumps back out to the center. So it alleviates the pressure on the banks and the erosion, but adds a real nice little cut bank for fish too. And then everything starts to grow in. That's another one of the longer structures called a mudsill. There's a shot of the wetlands after creation. The early years of planting the buffer, and now another picture of it starting to really grow in, and you can even see you know, some of these stream structures here sticking out, growing vegetation, and nice little, this is where you'd be able to catch some fish too, so that's kind of a nice highlight. There's a picture from last summer of the wetlands. You know, that'd be, again, about that 10-year span there before and after. This is the final set of slides, and I like this one. I got my son in this one. He said he wanted to go fishing. This was a couple, maybe 3-4 years ago now. Well, let's go down to the site where we first planted trees and see what's happening down there. But what I like about this is the buffer's growing in, but it's providing the exact function that we wanted to provide for the stream. So these Boy Scouts could possibly be Rotary members now, I think. That's how long we did that planting with the local Cub Scout troop. So that's the day of the planting. And that's what those trees now look like that were hand planted. Well, that was like 2018, I think that was. So my son's, yeah, he's a little older than that now. But here's what they're doing. They're holding the stream banks in. You can see how the root system's holding erosion in place. and holding the stream banks in, providing shade and cover for fishing opportunities. And then I noticed there was recently some high water that went over bank, and you're seeing it, like it's trapping sediment within the floodplain as those floodwaters recede. So pretty cool stuff. That these trees aren't just planted for fun; they're planted for function, and they're doing their job. So we actually we have a bunch of different grants right now, which are funding at least 6 different new projects over the watershed in the coming years. The one to keep an eye on, if you head out 230, head toward Middletown and get to the creek, upstream, the bridge of the creek, upstream from there, and there's a big warehouse going in up here. You can't miss that, that's for sure. But on the between Hoffer Road and the creek, there's going to be a major stream restoration project going in. They're going to finally have their permits, everything lined up. I think they're going to break ground next month. The township is sponsoring, Londonderry Township is sponsoring this as part of their stormwater permitting requirements, and it goes well beyond their minimums there. It's going to add a ton of quality habitat, so it's something to keep in mind. Getting involved, that's our website. Check us out. We actually have a donate button and a membership button, a PayPal account now. You can email us if you're interested in more information or becoming a member of our email listserv. And again, we'll be out at Earth to E-Town all day. We actually are going to be doing a kind of a spin-off, cleanup of the creek that we'll be leading. And so if you're interested in that, meeting at the fairgrounds at 9 a.m. And if you happen to live in the watershed and have some property one of the streams runs through, give us a call. We'd love to work with you. So, or if you know of any property owners, farmers or other property owners, yeah, just let us know. So, yeah.